Pop.
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 Pop. Pop.
I chose a poem by a poet named Marcos Rodriguez Frese, and he came out of the Guajana movement during the mid-60s out of the University of Puerto Rico at Rio Piedras, and the poem is called Vital Poetics. Suspend the song, live by vital verse. For once, listen to me. Speak without trope. The heart doesn't melt. It stops in horror and from death, or breaks from wars and weeping. Listen, that first of all. Then unleash your tongue, your fists, if necessary. Suspend song, please, and speak normally or hardly at all. And to me too, though I'm already on the blacklist, and the red of those loving peace, bread, freedom for all, for those of us changing the world with a few swift kicks of light, with words of flesh and bone to the daily dog of our own death whenever someone falls in vain. I chose this poem because for me, it's always a reminder not to take poetry for granted. And the translation was done by a gentleman named Roberto Marquez, who had did this anthology of Puerto Rican poetry. And this is where I found this poem. And it just spoke to me as far as the urgency, I think, of what it means to be a poet in the world, where there's so many things happening that affect you in one way or another. And that that poetry truly is not something to be taken as a luxury, I think. And that's a reminder of that for me. I followed up with a poem from a collection that I'm almost done with called The Essential Hits of Shorty Bone Bone. And these are poems written almost as a life cycle of, not even a life cycle, but more a moment in a percussionist's life where he gets to record this one time with this big band. And it's loosely based on an experience that my uncle had, whom I never met. But it was a way of kind of exercising what that would have been like for him to sit in with the Sesta All-Stars in 1976 and have that moment. So the first poem is called Where to Start. You could always start with the used to of things. At first, the sky begs for attitude, someone to talk thunder. When Charlie Palmieri heard my first lick, I was faded, taped, and trimmed. I broke night into gold, and for lack of jumping skills, no boogie to boast with, I went in hard. Laughed darkness into science, breath punked to death. I can't front, poet. I battled Mambo Kings, rampage city blocks like back-to-back hurricanes, dropped foe with killer speed. But cast this lyric in fairy dust, bare the head just enough that it doesn't get bit, and you would be placing a bomb where no threat is said to exist. So yeah, I chose a broad question in why do I write poetry, and it's a question I'm asked all the time, from the second grade visit to the college workshop. Someone is always asking, why do you write poetry? And I think I always kind of face the challenge of answering that question differently every time out. And basically, I think one of the answers in my replies has been that it's always been, writing poetry has always been a way to combat the times that I've been silenced, the many times I think that I've been silenced, even as a young person in the world, where you try to sort of express some sort of opinion or feeling or even a joke or a snap, and somebody will be like, "Ah, shut up, that wasn't right, that wasn't cool, that wasn't funny." And I think writing poems is a way to get at that silence. I also think that I have this image of Kid Torres. He was I was about 9 or 10 years old, and he was walking on a rooftop ledge. It was 6 stories up, and it felt like they were playing Follow the Leader. He was the leader. And he walked on the rooftop ledge from one end of the building to another, like a Walenda almost, you know. And I was just in awe. I was in my room looking at him walk across this rooftop ledge, and I always wanted to walk on that rooftop ledge. And I think writing poems is a lot like, you know, walking on that rooftop ledge. That sense of being in a spot of being courageous, of being at risk as well. One of the things that always brings me to the poem is, how do I navigate two worlds at once? And that's always a challenge for me as a poet, that maintenance of good and bad, right and wrong, but even more so, taking those things and reversing them, turning them upside down, so that what you think is good is actually bad, and what you think is right is actually wrong, and furthermore, you're not really there to say that it's right or wrong, but your reader or your audience can ascertain that for themselves. So those are I think of a few of the reasons I think I write poetry, and I think this general tendency to get at, you know, the sadness of humanity, the excitement of humanity, the conflict, the chaos, I think, of being of human in the world, in the modern world at that, and to let go. So yeah, I'm formulating a question, answer to this question for every day of the year, I think. So hopefully I plan to have like 365 answers for this question soon. Pop. Cool.